Hey kids, hope this children's sermon finds you well. Today we're going to be continuing James 4. We're going to be finishing off the chapter that Christian did last week. And so we're going to continue talking about humility. Last week we talked about how God's ways are better than our ways, how God is all-knowing and He has given us commands. And sometimes we don't want to do those things, but we have to have humility and recognize that sometimes, even though we may not want to do whatever He has told us, we have to have humility to do those things because we have to know that He and His ways are better than ours. And so this week, and we're going to continue talking about humility, but we're going to talk about why we ought to be humble and why we ought not to be the opposite of humble, which is prideful and arrogant. So James is going to give us two examples. And the first one is going to be that there's a person who is thinking that he is better than somebody else. He is looking at somebody else and he's saying, that person has done all these wrong things. That person is clearly not as good as I am. And we may not always think that way specifically, but that's kind of the heart of what this person is trying to say. And so what James is saying is that there is no place for that kind of judgment against somebody else. The reason is because we are equally at fault of disobeying God, and we're equally sinful. So when we try and judge others, he says that there's only one judge, and that judge is God. And He is judged because He is perfect, and He is all-knowing, and He has the right to judge. And so when we try and be prideful and we try and think of ourselves greater than somebody else, there's just no place for that. And when we look to God and we look and we see His character and who we are and how we have failed, we can begin to dispel that pride and arrogance and begin to enter into humility and recognizing that we have failed as well. And the second example is thinking that we're able to control our life. And this one in particular is interesting for our current situation. And I think we all can start to have a real world example of the past 5 months here. And and what James is saying, he says that if you think that you are able to control your life, if you're able to say, I'm going to go here and do this tomorrow, or in 1 month I'm going to go and I'm going to go on vacation, and to have this arrogance that you think this is absolutely going to happen because I can control my life. If you remember the phrase, control is an illusion, trust God, right? We talked about that a lot over last summer. And that same idea applies here, is that we think we can control our lives. We can think we control when we go back to school, right? We can think we control how we go back to school and where we're going to be when we're at school. But the simple reality is that God is the only one who can control our situation. He's the only one who knows and can really have complete control over our situation. And so when we try and have that arrogance to assert that I am able to completely control my life and I don't need God's involvement at all, there's just no place for that, because as we've seen, right, I can be like, well, I'm just going to wake up and go to work, and then all of a sudden the earth is shaking and I'm in the middle of an earthquake, right, and work is shut down, so now I can't go into work. So and then of course the pandemic as well. I plan on going on this vacation this year, but now I can't do that, or again with school, I can no longer go back into school, or whatever that may look like in the next couple months. We have to learn to trust God and have humility that His plan is greater than our plan. And so those are the two things that James challenges us, is recognize and look to God and how powerful He is and who He is, how perfect He is, and find humility in yourself, because you are nowhere near as perfect or as powerful as God is. But we can find faith and we can find peace in God's power and authority. So that's what James is challenging us to do today. So let me pray for us. Dear Heavenly Father, you're a great God. You are so far above us in your knowledge and your power. Father, teach us to trust you and have humility to continue to do so. Father, you are a great God, and we love you. All right, Brandy, it was great to have this time with you. Wish we could be in person, but hopefully we're getting closer to that. So take care, guys.